Thank you, Sarah, and thank you everybody for joining us today. As she said, we'll be talking about queries and groups. Another word that you could think of for queries would be filtering. But basically, it's a lot of trying to limit down the information to just a specific subset so you have a workable list. Like, for example, finding a specific type of property for a buyer, finding contacts that you have or have not reached out to recently, and so on. If you do have any questions along the process, you can go ahead and just ask them in the question and answer section. And if I get beyond where the explanation was, I'll actually also take some time at the end for any additional questions. So definitely keep those coming if anything needs clarification or you have like kind of a use case question. Although the use case sort of stuff will be more towards the end. But without further ado, I'm going to be actually splitting this up into the three different sections. First, I'll be talking about groups and queries in the desktop CRM, followed by groups and actually filtering is what it's called on the online and the online CRM as well as the mobile app. So I'll be showing all three of those. The desktop CRM, I'll usually start with that as it's a little bit more comprehensive as it's had a lot more time to have all of this functionality develop. But as I keep doing these webinars, we actually, each time I do them, have more and more to show on the mobile and app versions, so it kind of at least keeps it a little bit fresh doing these regularly. So if you we'll go ahead and start with groups. So first off, creating a group. So when you're on any given table, and first of all, I've got the properties screen open here, but the same is going to apply whether you're in properties, contacts, companies, and so on. But there's a status panel that shows up on the left side. I'll just let that expand a little bit here. And the bottom section of the status panel is where the groups will show up. So right now we have 4 different groups that you can see: finished, webinar, webinar contacts, and webinar group 2. You're probably seeing a theme there, and I do this a few times here and there. So that's where you'll see the groups when you're working on a day-to-day basis. But there's actually a specific spot to go see all groups, and that's under the View menu and Groups. And from there, you'll actually see all of the different types of groups. And from here, you can also add groups, delete groups, or change groups, which you can also do from the left panel over here. Now, if this status panel ever goes away and your screen looks more like this, where you don't see the record owner, you can bring that back simply by going to View, Panels, and clicking on Status. So when you're on a given table, right now we're on Properties, but if we actually go and open up Contacts, we'll see that we have a slightly different subset of groups. And we went to View Groups, we saw that there's actually a column there for the type. So groups have a specific type or no type being unknown. When you add a group, either by hitting the New button in the Groups window there, or simply by right-clicking in the Groups section in the Status panel and selecting New Group, first off, you'll be wanting to give the group a name, something to remind you what this container for your contacts or properties is. So I'm actually going to go off theme and not call it webinar. So let's say that, yeah, we're working on a project for, I already got that one, Flower Street. So we'll call this group Flower Street Suspects. The next option is going to be the type. So this is where the group will show up. So if the type is contact, the Flower Street Suspects group will only show up on the left panel if you happen to have contacts open. Now, the way around that is by selecting instead unknown. Unknown is effectively just meaning there's no type and it will show up everywhere. So contacts, properties, spaces, I'm trying to remember everywhere that it ends up showing up. You can actually see the full list of where group shows up by going to View Groups. And when you create a group from here, it'll actually have all of the options. So contacts, companies, properties, spaces, both comparables, and projects can have groups associated with them. So once you've created a group, I'm just going to use the ones that I've already got in here to make it a little bit less messy next time. You'll see that there's a checkbox to the left of the group name itself. And clicking in there will simply check the box, meaning this record that we're on, Toby Harold, is now a member of the Balboa Office Prospects group. Uncheck it, now he's no longer a part of that group. So at the most base level, that's as complex as you sometimes need to get with groups. It's just a checkbox, and well, I mean, you'll also probably want to be able to bring up the contacts in said group, which we'll go into a little bit more advanced stuff like adding from a list and so on, but basics are that. And then to bring up the records that are in a group, so let's say we want to bring up all of the Balboa Office suspects. In total, we've got 194 records in our database. When we right-click on that group, we can choose Activate Group to open up in a new window only the contact records that are a member of that group, which in total in our database is 10. We've got Toby, Rachel, Roxanne, and so on down the list. And so if we actually bring this back, we'll see that we actually now have two separate windows. One was the contact window we had open originally, and one was the contact window we opened for Balboa Office Suspects, and that'll actually reflect on the top of that group window. Now there's two different ways that you can actually bring up the records that are in a group. In addition to activating a group, bringing up a new window, you can actually search within the window you're already in, and there's a few benefits to that. So you can do that by right-clicking on the group and selecting Query. And this is kind of why the two of these end up going together, is groups and queries really work hand in hand a lot of the time, and the functionality kind of, one benefits the other and vice versa. But when you go to Query, you'll get the query window, which we'll go into a little bit more depth on, but querying for a group is a little bit simpler than fields, in that you can search for either records are a member of a group or are not a member of a group. So if you do this, it'll show you all of the contacts that aren't checked for that group, bringing us to 184. So that's one of the big benefits of that, is you can search for the inverse of a group using query, whereas activating a group 100% of the time will just bring up the contacts in the group. But sometimes it's actually beneficial to get the records not in a group, and we'll actually talk about some benefits of that as well when we come to querying. Let's see. So like I had previously mentioned, adding a record to a group is just a simple matter of checking a checkbox. However, it can be a little bit tedious to, click next, check the box, click next, nope, don't want him in there, go ahead and check, and so on. What you can also do is bring up a list of your contacts or properties or whatever type of records you're grouping and do it from there. So I'm going to go to View and select List, or hit F5 on my keyboard, and it'll switch me to more of a spreadsheet view like this. So from here, whenever you're on a list view, you'll see a tag column on the left side with checkboxes. Pretty simple. Just check the checkbox for the contacts that you're ultimately going to want in this group. So I feel bad for people at the end of the alphabet now. I never get the people in the middle, but they probably deserve it. There we go. So now, once you've got your records tagged that you want to add into a group, that's where this tag button is going to come into play. So there's a few different uses for this tag button. First off, if you just click the button, it will, it'll first, if you have a query set, bring up this message, but I'll come back to that in a second. It will just limit your search down to just the records in that group. So this is kind of really a halfway point between a query and a group. Tag records are really kind of a temporary group, but ultimately they function in the same way that you might want to use a query, in that it's to limit down your information to just the records you want to see. So we've tagged 17 records, as we see here at the bottom left. It gives us a list of how many, or a total of how many records there are here. If we wanted to add these to one of our groups, either existing or create a new group, there's also a button on the right side of the tag button, and you have a choice, an option here to save tags. So what save tags will do is give you an option to either create a new group. So we're going to name this List View Group, because that's very specific to what it is. But in addition to creating a new group, you can also add tags to an existing group. So for example, we could add these contacts to Balboa Office Suspects, or we can replace the contacts of a group. Add these contacts to Balboa Office Suspects and remove everybody else from that group. So tags replace isn't used nearly as much, and because of that, you probably just want to make sure each time you're doing this that it's on the correct option there, add tags to existing. But for right now, we're just going to make a new group and add them to it. And it'll tell us, sometimes oddly doubles the number. It's actually a known bug, and hopefully we'll have a fix for that, but sometimes you'll see the number exactly double and it's nothing to worry about. So just divide it by 2 if it seems high, and it should equal the exact number there. Okay, let's see. So from here we're going to go ahead and take a step over to queries now. And we'll come back to groups a few times during this process, and as well as show how it's going to work on the online versions and the app. So for the next part of this, I'm actually going to switch over from contacts into properties, as I find that a lot more queries are actually just done from properties just due to the amount of fields that are in there. So a query is a way of limiting down the information in your database, or filtering the information in your database, So you're only looking at a specific set of records or group of records, but I usually wouldn't use the word group just because we use that word specifically on the left side here. So an example of a query, and we'll go ahead and do this one exactly as I'm saying together. So we want to find all of our buildings in Las Vegas between 40,000 and 60,000 square feet. And specifically, we want to find the owners of those buildings in order to create a mailing list for this new building that we recently got the listing for. So first off, we're going to search for all of our properties between, so again, it's between 60,000 square feet in Las Vegas. So first we'll search for the properties between 40 and 60,000 square feet. And we see right now we have a total of 200 records in our properties here. So if you want to query one of the fields that is visible here, you can simply right-click on that field and select Query there. And that will bring up the query window with the field automatically filled in for you. So we right-clicked on building size, that's the field that's selected here. So that's, first off, is the field that you want to search. Operator is how you want to search on that field. So if you drop that down, it'll probably make a little bit more sense than the word operator a lot of the times. In our case, we're going to do between, as we want to find every property between 40 and 60,000 square feet. But just to give you a quick idea of what the options are, you can choose is, which is an exact match, is not, blank, so is empty, meaning you can find all of your records where you need to fill in the square footage. And that's something we actually talked about a decent amount on the webinar on spring cleaning. So if you, we should have that up in the near future, I believe, if it's not up already on our knowledge base, but I didn't check into that before making that statement. So you can also do greater than or less than and so on. So we're going to do between 40,000, so I'm just going to type 40K, and just a quick pointer, if you're typing in numbers into the system, you can always use K shorthand for 1,000 and it'll automatically replace it with 3 zeros, or M for million and replace it with 6 zeros. So if I did the 60M, it would do that. 60K. And then we'll go ahead and hit OK. And that brings us to 15 records in our database. Now this is the demo database, so you probably have a little bit more, a better result than me, but this is for, showing off purposes only, really. So first off, we wanted to find that. Next, we want to find just out of these 40 and 60,000 square foot buildings, the 15 of them, how many of them are in Las Vegas. So when you have a field like this that you want to query, unfortunately, there's not a way to right-click on that. What we can do is use the drop-down here and select Query, or use Control-Q on your keyboard to bring up the query window. So this time we'll have to just select the field that we want. So we're going to go down to City. Now, there's a few different options here because this isn't a numeric field. So the building size, because it's a numeric field, didn't have options like contains, doesn't contain, sounds like, and so on. And I'm actually going to do contains in the search for a specific reason, especially with Vegas, in that a lot of the times when you're searching for Las Vegas, there's Las Vegas and there's North Las Vegas. So if you're just searching for is, like I had said before, is an exact match. So if we did this, is Las Vegas, it would not bring up any of them that were North Las Vegas. Whereas if we do contains, it'll search and find any records that have Las Vegas anywhere in the city field. Now, you can also do starts with or ends with. Starts with would be good for, well, it would actually be ends with in most cases for cities. You can also do starts with for, I don't have an example off the top of my head, but I'm sure it doesn't seem so wild that that would be something you'd want to search. So we'll go ahead and do city contains Las Vegas. Now, if you also notice, since we did the first query and we have a query already set, when you do a query, bring up a query window when you already have one set, you'll see these three options appear. First off is replace current query, meaning ignore the first search completely and just give me all of the results of this query. Drill down within current query is effectively the word and. So if you actually read this, building size between 40,000 and 60,000, and then drill down within current query is and. So if we did that, it means this and city contains Las Vegas. Whereas add to current query is or. So building size is between 40,000 and 60,000 square feet, or city contains Las Vegas. And another way to think of it is, should the number go down or up? If the number should go down, you use drill down within current query. And if you needed to go up, you use add like addition, which, well, I guess, never mind, negative numbers exist. But if you want it to go down, the one with the word down is the one to go off of, just kind of making up mnemonic devices here. So in this case, and the reason for that is, in this case, it would be more exclusive. So there's less properties in Las Vegas and between 40,000 and 60,000 square feet because we're basically adding a level to it. So once we hit OK, we get 9 total records that match the criteria for the search there. So the next thing I wanted to do, though, with these properties is actually to bring up the contacts and add those contacts to a new group. So if you want to bring up the owners of the properties that you're looking at, so we've got 9 total properties, we can go up to Lookup, and there's an option here for Linked, and then you can select owners. And if you see, there's a few different options here. So for example, if you wanted to find the spaces that are leasable, you could use the spaces function to find the linked spaces and so on. Go to owners though, and that'll bring us the 8 owners that own those 9 buildings, which it always should actually be the same or less, as buildings have exactly one owner, but one owner can own multiple buildings. So now we've got our 8 contact records. We can then create a new group. We'll call it Las Vegas 40 to 60K. Hit OK. And then we'll right-click on that group and select Add Lookup. And so now you can kind of see why the two end up going together. So that makes it to where we don't have to do that search every single time we want to bring up these contacts now. So next time we want to bring up our group of the 40 to 60,000 square foot owners in Las Vegas, we can simply right-click on the group and activate it to save us all of the steps. Although, to be brutally honest, I'm pretty sure most of that was due to talking and not because the steps are actually long. Let's see. Query visible options. Group. All right, now in addition to querying such as properties, contacts, and so on, you can also use the dashboard to find records. So the dashboard is sort of a list view of all of your events, so your scheduled activities, your history records, things that you've done, so notes of your previous conversations, emails, and so on, as well as a list of your projects and leads. So what this means is that you can actually use this to find all of a specific type of history record or all of your items that you have scheduled. And if you remember that lookup linked, we actually have that same capability when we are in the dashboard. So what this can be used for is to, example, find everybody that we've ever spoken to on a specific project. So that's actually what I'm going to do right this moment. So by default, when you go on to the dashboard, hold on one second. So it'll set just to show today's history and no query set. So what we want to do is show all of our, we're wanting to find all of our contacts that we've spoken to about Balboa Office Park project. So first off, I want to query for the project from the history. So one thing to note is that there are 4 little tabs here on the left side on the toolbar, and you'll want to make sure that you're on the history tab in this case, but unless you were wanting to search for people that you've got scheduled activities with, for example. So I want to go here, and first off, I want to find all of my history records where the project is Balboa Office Park. Now, of course, this isn't going to show us anything else as we are only showing today's history, and I have not added any history today to that project yet. Next, we can use this past. So by default, you see the options here: all, none, 1 or 2, 1 through a week, 2 weeks, and so on. You can also manually type exactly how long. So for example, you needed to see the history of the last 46 days, you could just type 46 days. It's not immediately obvious in that case, and to be honest, it's not really used all that often, but just wanted to point that out as it is capable of doing a specific thing there, but you can also use a query to do a specific date range as well. But we wanted to show everybody that we've ever talked to on Balboa Office Park. So if we see here at the bottom left now, we've got 1 of 60 records. So we've got 60 history records, and now we can use that same lookup linked contacts, and we bring up 43 contacts that we've spoken to about Balboa Office Park. And you can use that same concept, and of course you could then add them to a specific group, or bring up a list and export these records to Excel for a marketing team to send out a mailer on them, to upload to BuzzTarget for emailing to your clients or any systems that you currently use. So let's see. In addition to doing that from history, you can also use this as sort of a way to find people that you have or have not reached out to recently. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard here real quick. And instead of history, we can go to events. So let's say we want to find everybody that we've reached out to, or that we have something scheduled for in the future. Yeah, it's not really all that useful, but I mean, same concept though. So you're going to be, first off, using the toolbar at the top to find the events that you want to use to find your contacts. So you can use the past and future. In this case, we're going to do everybody that we have something scheduled for with in the future. So we'll change future to all. And we also don't want to show things that have already been finished, and only stuff that I have scheduled. So I've got 21 events, and again, it's a simple matter of going to lookup, linked, and contacts. Unfortunately, none of these are actually linked to anything, as I'm pretty sure these are just out of my, these are just out of my actual calendar. But at that point, it would bring up the contacts that are linked to as well. Let's see, that's about what I had set for the desktop version. So I'm going to change gears now and talk about sort of the same concepts on the online version. So let's see here. There we go. So I'm logged into my database online here, and I'm going to go ahead and start with I'm actually going to start with groups once again on the online version. So once you've logged in and you're in your CRM on the online application, there's a section for groups similar to going to view groups on the desktop version. It's under My Account, Personal, Groups, and that's going to end up giving you a list of all of your groups, and these should look pretty much the same as the list that we have in the other database as well, just a little bit out of date now. But from here, you can also click Add New Group to create a new group from the online version and give that a name. And then the type, once again, the type is either going to be contact, property, company, space, sale or lease comp, or project, or in the online version's case, all. So once we hit OK, we'll then see that group in our groups list here. And then in addition to that, you can also use this area to delete your groups or to modify it. So for example, if you wanted to change the type of it to contacts, or you wanted to change the name of it, you could do that from there. You can also use one of the buttons here to see the members of that group. So in this case, this group has 7 contacts in it, shows it all in one nice, quick, easy to read list. Whereas if you have a larger group, there we go, you'll see a number of pages there on the bottom. And so if you want to know just quickly how many contact records you have in the group from this list, you can use the button to go all the way to the end. You'll see how many pages you have. So each one of the pages has 10 contacts on it. So 10 times 17 is 170, plus we've got 9 on this page, so 179 contacts in this group. Now, to find the records that are in groups, it's going to be along the top here. You'll see on each of the different sections, for example, contacts or properties or companies, you'll see a drop down at the top with groups where you can just select one of the groups to see just the contacts that are in said group. When we click on that, we should see, 179 different contacts in that group there. Now, when you want to add a contact to a specific group, there are 2 different ways. One, you can actually do it directly from personal groups from the members list here by clicking Add Members and searching for the contacts. You can also do it directly from a contact or property, whatever type of record you're wanting to add to a group, by clicking on a contact. We'll go ahead and go with Andrew here. Now, that will work perfectly. And right under where you have the contact name, address, and so on, you can click in here and add this contact to any groups that you would like simply by clicking on the group name there. You can also then click Manage, and that'll bring up that same groups window here, so you can actually add groups directly from contacts by clicking that Manage button. Now, on to queries on the online CRM. So on the online CRM, they're actually not called queries, but I still use the term, and we probably will continue to on a regular basis, as changing your actual vocabulary is a lot simpler than it sounds. But a few different ways that you can actually filter your records on the online CRM, and these are all going to be shown at the top here. So first off, you can actually change the sort order from the same section. And you can also, second off, select the type. So in the case of contacts, you're going to get the contact types: investor, tenant, agent, vendor, personal, prospect. You can also do keyword search. So for example, if you wanted to just quickly find all of the records that have the word San Diego in them, you could do the keyword search there, hit search, and they'll show all the records that have San Diego anywhere on the record. So that might not be actually that great to find all of your contacts in San Diego, because, for example, if you had someone in your database, and we'll actually do this real quick, she is not in San Diego, but her name is San Diego. So now if we do that same keyword search filter, I don't actually know. I should have actually filtered it. Oh. There she is. I forgot that I actually did have a group selected at the top, so my apologies for that taking a moment there. But in this case, it brought up Carmen Sandiego, answering the age-old question, where in the world is she? But that's one reason that the keyword search might not necessarily be great, and that's because, like for example, if you're searching for cities, a lot of people have city last names. San Diego's not all that common, but things like, I'm drawing a blank. I don't really know that many people named Bill Phoenix, so but I guarantee you it is. I'm just having it's a little bit late in the day for me to come up with anything original here. Let's see. But in that case, what you would actually want to do is use filters. So when you click on the filters button, you're going to get a list of the fields that are in the database. And in this case, we want the basic fields, which includes city. So we want to do city contains San Diego instead. So we originally had 32 records with San Diego anywhere. But if we use the filter instead, we get 31 records, and thus, once again, we can ask ourselves, where in the world is Carmen San Diego? Well, she is not in San Diego, so we are seeing a little bit of a difference between keyword and city. Although, to be honest, for the most part, the keyword's going to work if you're just trying to just remember who a contact is, whereas if you wanted to then use the list view in order to export these records to Excel, let's go ahead and list 90 at a time. We could then select all of these records here, and for example, we wanted to delete everybody in San Diego. We could then delete all these contacts from here, create a history for all of them, add all of them to a group, similar to the list view, or export them to an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file. And then finally, the online CRM. Let's see. So, and the app version. So the app, this is actually, some of this functionality is brand new. In fact, we just added the capability of adding groups to contacts and properties directly from the app. So I wanted to make sure to give this its little spot in the sun here, as we've constantly been adding new improvements to the system every roughly week or so in the last month or two since release. So first off, for groups, groups in the system work very similarly to the online version. First off, you have a group filter at the bottom, which is also where you'll see the filter to be able to query. So if you click on the group button there, you can select which group you want to find the contacts from. So we'll go ahead and select Balboa Office Prospects and hit OK. And we'll bring up the 26 records that are a part of that group. Now, in order to add a record to a group, let's go ahead and do this, undo our filter. So let's say we wanted to go and add, let's say, Jonathan to a group. From here, we can click on Jonathan and then click on the edit button at the top right. And when you're in the system to edit their name, company, and so on, if you keep scrolling down, you will see groups there. If you click on that, you will have little checkboxes in order to add them to any groups that you want. Once you've selected the groups that you want to add that person to, simply hit OK and then save. And then, of course, we can go back to our contact list here and search for groups. Now, same concept with filters. So when you click on filter, it's going to be separated into simple and advanced. Simple is actually pretty much the equivalent of the keyword functionality, except it actually is field by field. In that advanced lets you have a little bit more control over how exactly the field is searched, whereas every single one of these is going to be a contained search or a range search. Doesn't actually make sense, does it? So advanced is going to work a lot like the actual queries in the CRM desktop, as well as the filters in the online version. First off, you select the field that you want to search based on, and like any field selector in the app version, you'll see little sections where you can expand or contract them and select which field you want to search off of. So in this case, we want to do city, and then we can then choose, let's find all of our people that don't have any value for the city. Hit add to filter and apply. And so if you notice, we can actually click on that and it'll actually show all of the different filters that you have here. So then we can do another search for city is empty, but we only want the ones where name contains the letter S. Add to filter, and we'll see that show up here. So city is empty, and name contains S. Hit apply, and it'll show us the 5 records where that is the case. So that's all I had written down on my handy dandy little cheat sheet here, but if you do have any questions, I'll try to drag out my talking for a couple seconds here at least. But if you do end up having any questions that don't get answered, you can always shoot our support team an email at support@realnex.com, or you can find our phone. I usually don't bother with the phone number on here, as most people aren't writing it down necessarily, but you can always find our phone number right at realnex.com. Down at the bottom here, as well as links to our knowledge base, where a lot of the stuff that we actually covered in this does have a number of articles in the core section, especially groups and queries, plus the previous webinars will end up usually showing up in this section as well. Well, not necessarily this one. Hey, good, I answered my own question. And spring cleaning your core CRM database webinar is in fact on here, so that is great news as well. And you can actually just, if you ever want to find all of the webinars that we have available that we've pre-recorded, if you just search the word webinar on the search bar at the top, you can see all of them in there, and all of them are going to be under the knowledge base. And I guess we have a meta article where all of them end up showing up as well. Perfect. Thank you, Brittany, for that, making all of our lives easier with meta articles. So I haven't seen any questions come in, so I just want to take a moment to thank everybody for joining us. Remember to always take a look at our webinars that we have upcoming at realnex.com. You can click on the blue Join Webinar button, and that will show you a list of all of the ones that we have. This week we'll also be having one on the Market Edge Deal Room. So you can learn how to set up and use the deal rooms to share your important deal documents and set access levels for the various people involved in a deal. So Sarah, if you have anything else as well.
Thanks, Bobby. As Bobby said, if you have any questions, you can reach us by all our contacts online. You can also email us at info@realnex.com. And that's all we have. Thanks for joining us, and check back with us for more webinars in the future.